Ms. Kathy Kemper, CEO of the Institute for Education. Sir John Paul Farmer, former Senior Advisor for Innovation at the White House, Office of Science and Technology, and IFE Emerging Markets Roundtable co-founder. Our distinguished speakers, Adam Dole, Jacqueline, Kazil, and Scott Wu. Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my wife, Vicky, and my colleagues at the Philippine Embassy, I extend a warm welcome to all of you and wish you all a Happy New Year. I thank Coach Kathy for working with us on the forum tonight. I had the privilege of having been invited to some of the IFE fora in the past, and I was impressed with the programs that she ran at the IFE, in particular the Youth Engagement Program. When I arrived at DC sometime in early 2011, I realized how important a resource the Philippine American youth could be, especially with the influence of my wife Vicky. So I initiated programs that would strengthen their participation in embassy and community events. I'm pleased to kick off 2014 with a forum on a subject that is most interesting to those already involved in civic innovation, but also to individuals like me who are part of an administration that has always championed citizen participation and open government. When he assumed the presidency, President Benigno Aquino III was fully cognizant of the serious challenges that beset the country, and he was the first to recognize that no man can do the job alone. Since his first year in office, he has fondly called the Filipino people his boss, a subtle reminder that his policies would only be effective if they will have the clear and unified support of the people. In the State of the Nation address last year, the President had led us in asking ourselves, and I quote, "How have I contributed to the solution?" I believe this is basically what civic innovation is all about. It's about a new idea or technology that improves or sometimes challenges an existing process and thus contributes in enhancing the system, the society, or people's lives. In every decision he makes, the President encourages participatory governance, and his integrity and steadfast leadership have inspired our people to commit to the President's social agenda. And so while tonight's panel will focus on civic innovation, I thought I should share the Philippines Open Government Initiative. Civic innovation, after all, is fueled by the availability of open data, especially those that come from government. In the International Open Government Data Conference held at the World Bank in 2012, World Bank President Dr. Jim Kim said that robust open data is critical to cut poverty and drive development. The Philippines shares this perspective, and in line with the President's good governance reform agenda, the Philippine government worked hard in promoting transparency and accountability. Our efforts paid off, and today, the Philippines continues to enjoy stellar growth with 5 consecutive quarters of at least 7% GDP growth, investment grade rating, and improved competitiveness. The initiatives implemented may be seen as largely basic. In the past 4 years, the Philippine government has passed its budget on time, something that was not accomplished in the previous administration. We observe performance-informed budgeting, which shows the link between the funds allocated for a certain program and the projected outcomes. Stakeholder engagement is also an integral part of the budget planning process. A citizens portal was also established where the public may inquire and engage about the national budget, which is posted online and was called Budget ng Bayan or People's Budget. Towards our goal of launching the Open Data website, a portal for public national government data sets, the government with its civil society and private sector partners organized a 2-day hackathon last November where IT developers and designers competed to create innovative mobile or web-based applications that could present new ways to increase public awareness in tracking government spending. The winning app was interestingly called Budget Budger. The Commission on Audit, also in partnership with civil society, launched the Citizens Participatory Audit, or CPA, where audit officials, together with ordinary citizens, jointly audit government projects. The 4 pilot projects included those that are traditionally seen as corruption-ridden, such as road and school building infrastructure. In November 2013, the affiliated Network for Social Accountability in East Asia and the Pacific, the civil society partner of CO, the Commission on Audit, received the Bright Spot Award at the Open Government Partnership Summit in London for the CPA. Another example is Project NOAA, for the Nationwide Operational Assessment of Hazards, an online warning system on natural calamities managed by the government, which is also planning to hold a hackathon to improve the system by integrating additional data, in particular to show better visualization of vulnerable sectors. The Philippines certainly does not have a dearth of talented developers. Manila was even described as a hotbed for developer talent. Successful Filipino technopreneurs are found in Silicon Valley, and the Philippines is a recognized leader in business process management. While the government policy in place and is a ready pool of developer talent, I'm optimistic that civic innovation will be in the Philippines in the months ahead. I therefore look forward to a substantive and enriching discussion from the panelists, and hopefully the Embassy will gain important insights on how to better harness opportunities and competencies for civic innovation. Before I close, I introduce the founder and CEO of the Institute for Education, who really does not need any introduction, is Kemper. Institute for Education is a nonprofit foundation that recognizes and promotes leadership, civility, and finding common ground locally, nationally, and in the world community. IFE also educates youth for global citizenship with programs that foster intercultural appreciation. Called Washington's Networker-in-Chief by U.S. News and World Report, Ms. Kemper also founded INFO, a program of IFE. INFO is a roundtable public affairs forum that draws diplomats, influential public officials, business leaders, and game changers for debate and discussion. What is interesting to note is that Kathy is a professional tennis player and coach, and has spent more than 25 years coaching tennis for Washington's power brokers and opinion makers. She is also quite well known in the diplomatic community. She is the recipient of several Woman of the Year awards and writes for various DC and international papers. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Ms. Kathy Kemper.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for that nice introduction. As I always do, I want to say Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year. We're welcome. Thrilled to have you all here with us today. And as I always do, as my custom is to say, welcome sport fans, welcome to our IFE Civic Innovation Public Policy Salon. Wherever IFE is, civility and collaboration prevail. Now, in our 23rd season, IFE Info have been recognizing and promoting civility, leadership in the world community. IFE has been breaking partisanship, cutting through politics, bringing leaders together to establish common ground. In doing so, we have always been leaning in, looking for the next big thing. Ambassador Cuisia and your wife back there, thank you so much for welcoming the Institute for Education, and thank you for your support and your participation in so many of our events. And a big thank you to our panel, the White House Presidential Innovation Fellows panel. Now, how cool is that? Adam Dole at the end here, Jackie in the middle, and Adam Wu, our Presidential Innovation Fellow panel. The three of you join a very distinguished list of over 270 speakers over 23 years, including a Nobel Prize winner, cabinet secretaries, a vice president, a White House chief of staff, governors, mayors, senators, a Miss America, a professional athlete, and a great friend of ours all, Todd Park, the United States Chief Technology Officer, and five Supreme Court justices. In fact, our last panel was entitled Beyond Boston. It was held just days after the Boston Marathon bombing. The panel consisted of the Russian ambassador to the United States, a former CIA director, General Michael Hayden, and the first National Intelligence Agency director, John Negroponte. Now that panel is in distinguished company with three of you, don't you think? There's no doubt that IFE Info is an insider's, opinion leader's Washington institution, a mainstay in the Washington public policy arena. I want to extend a special welcome to the extraordinary and plenipotentiary and my great friends, Manuel Sager, the ambassador of Switzerland, and his wife, Christine. I'm Christine's tennis coach, which I'm very proud to say. And just to brag a little bit about Christine, it was just a few weeks ago, we were out having a clinic early in the morning, as we do, and Christine, we have target practice. It was about 23 degrees. We were all bundled up. I don't even know how we were holding our tennis racket. Christine set a record for the most targets hit in one morning. So congratulations, Christine. We'll have the trophy and award ceremony in a little bit. And of course, I want to welcome and honor our IFE leadership with us here. Marcy Robinson, stand up for a second, Marcy, so everybody knows, Chairman of our Board of Stewards. Someone that many of the Presidential Innovation Fellows know and love, Dr. Amy Gang, our Innovation Steward, is stuck in San Francisco Airport. She couldn't get through, coming through to Washington, so she really is so sorry, and she put so much work into this. We'll definitely miss her. We have our Innovation Founder here and IFE Steward, Chris Kane, founder also of Mercator 21. And I want to acknowledge our members that are here tonight as well. We have David Fenstermaker with Raymond James. Where's David? Stand up, David. Thank you for your support. And we have IFE Steward Ed Henry, who's going to do a poll in a few minutes for us with Fox News. Thanks for coming here tonight. Let's see. I think I got everybody. Okay, great. So now you all have a program. Take a look at it, pick it up. You see that little asterisk, okay, on your program. Well, look around you, and the chances are that you are sitting beside a PIP. You could recognize the PIPs by the pin that they wear on their lapel very proudly. Tonight we have PIPs everywhere, and I think that is just rocks. So before we get to the panel, I also want to welcome a young woman who's an IFE intern. She's just back from Harvard for vacation. Her name is Jenny Shore. She's right there. Stand up, Jenny. Jenny is the founder. She was awarded the IFE Global Compass Award last year. And the reason she was is because Jenny's been coming to Infos, these type of flagship programs, since she was about 14. And Jenny decided a few years ago that she wanted to found an Info public policy roundtable for high school kids and college kids in the area. So Jenny founded a forum called Next Gen, which is now housed at the Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting. And Mark Schulte, our IFE fellow, where are you, Mark? Runs the center, and thank you, Mark, for your leadership. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce the Institute for Education's emerging market founder, generous contributor, and sometimes I even say he's an honorary Kemper. His name is John Paul Farmer, sitting right here. It is under John's leadership at the White House, with Todd Park's mentorship, that this PIF program is the marquee signature initiative of Obama's administration. And of course, IFE embraces it because it has nothing to do with ideology, parties, Republicans, or Democrats. It's just all about innovation, working for better government. I mean, tell me, what could be better than that? So, John, will you introduce your pits for us and
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And hello, good evening, and welcome to this panel on civic innovation. We're very excited to be here. I can speak for all of us. I want to start by thanking the ambassador, Cuisia. Thank you so much to you and to your wife, Vicki. I want to welcome our friends from Switzerland and Singapore in particular. And then I want to say thank you to Coach and to the entire team here at the Institute for Education that works so hard to do so much good and makes events like this possible. So I am thrilled that we're going to talk about civic innovation. I love the topic. And what's great about it is that it's not just applicable to our government, the federal government. This is applicable all across the United States, and it's applicable internationally. The ambassador mentioned some of the great things that are happening in the Philippines, and we just want to see more and more of that. We want to figure out how we can share best practices so we can do more and more of this. I'll give you a little bit of background quickly before we get into this on what the PIF program, Presidential Innovation Fellows Program, is all about. Back in 2011, some of us from different parts of the federal government, we were talking about some of the challenges that we face on a regular basis and saying, you know, I bet there are people somewhere in the country who would be really good at solving these things. We like to quote Joy's Law. So this is named after Bill Joy, one of the co-founders of Sun Microsystems. And he said in a meeting one day, he said, no matter who you are, always remember that most of the smartest people work for somebody else. And it's always true. So we've got 2 million people in the federal workforce. A lot of them are amazing innovators. We've got hundreds of millions of people just in this country who do not work for the US government. So we ask ourselves, why aren't we tapping into them? Why aren't we giving them a chance to come in here and work with us to solve these problems? In 2012, Todd Park became the U.S. Chief Technology Officer, and he asked me to come join him and make this happen. This idea that we've been talking about, we were calling it Entrepreneurs in Residence at the time, and ended up rebranding it Presidential Innovation Fellows. One of the first meetings, someone said, I love that name. We just have to make sure no one ever calls it PIF. And of course, now that's what it's known by, PIF. And it took a lot of work. There was a team effort. There were a ton of people that worked hard to make this happen. And one of the key things we did is that we didn't tell people what to work on. We actually asked the agencies of the federal government to tell us what they thought were the pressing challenges that they could really use this kind of help with. And we crowdsourced these project ideas, and we took these project ideas out to the public. And we asked people, hey, is this something that you think you could really make an impact on? And we were blown away by the response. Hundreds of people applied in a few weeks. We only had 18 spots. In the first 6 months, we saw that this was a really promising way to solve problems. A couple of things I'll mention are, one, open data. So this is part of open government more broadly, the idea of opening up government data resources and making them freely available, much in the way that we've been doing here for decades with weather and GPS. But we decided to expand that, health, energy, education, and more. And we're very happy to see there's an international movement growing around this in the Philippines and elsewhere. And we're also very happy to see that McKinsey came out last month with a report saying that they believe that if open data were to reach its full potential, it could add $3 to $5 trillion a year to the global economy. These numbers are out of this world. So if we're even making a small dent in that, we're doing a lot of good. Another one I'll mention is called RFP-Z. RFP-Z was all about streamlining the procurement process and making it easier for small businesses to sell to the US government. We A/B tested, so we tried the old way and the new way side by side, and we saw 30% savings. So when you're looking at a federal IT budget of $80 billion a year, and if you can save anything on that, that's real money. So we're really excited about the promising early results, and that led us to another round where we had thousands of people apply for the second round of this opportunity to come be a part of solutions, really participate in government, and to make things happen. So we're incredibly excited to have a number of those Presidential Innovation Fellows here in the room today, and 3 on stage with me. So I will quickly run down, and then we'll get into some Q&A. Jackie Kazil, to my left, is working on disaster recovery and response at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known as FEMA. In the middle, we've got Scott Wu. Scott is working on development innovation ventures at the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. At the end, we have Adam Dole, who is working on Blue Button at the Department of Health and Human Services. So I'll start with a question for all of you, really, and take a few minutes to please describe to everyone how you got here and what work you're doing, and what those project names really mean, and what it's all about. Jackie, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I got here, not necessarily, I didn't start in technology. I started in journalism. And I got into journalism, I think, a little bit because my family was Eastern European and from Czechoslovakia. And growing up, I heard, the stories of my parents and, their lack of freedom of speech. And it sort of led me down a path to want to empower citizens and engage them. So after I was working in journalism for a little bit, doing technology in journalism, it was kind of a slippery slope where I felt like I was more technologist, and I wanted to look for other opportunities in which I could have a greater impact to engage citizens and to empower citizens. And so I ended up then moving to a contract at the Library of Congress, and now I'm a PIF.
First, actually, what you felt.
Yeah, sorry, Presidential Innovation Fellow. Thank you. So the project I'm working on is disaster response and recovery, and the goal of it is to pre-position tools prior to a disaster. This came out of some of the awesome ideas that came out of Hurricane Sandy to sort of continue that innovation process and to learn from every disaster as time passes.
Great. Scott, you're up next.
Well, just to keep on the sports theme, I would mention that it's obvious that John Farmer was a professional baseball player, not a football player, for scheduling this panel during the Super Bowl college football. Thanks, John. I'll start with the story for...
It starts at 8:30 though.
I know.
So let's move it along,
So on that note, I'm going to start from the beginning, how I got here. I'm an immigrant. I arrived in this country when I was 5. And my mother and I arrived to Minneapolis on December 20th. And if you think it's cold out tonight, we had 2 bags of pretty much tropical clothing. And we experienced snow for the first time. And so from that, we as a family just really came to understand how incredibly generous the American people were in our community, and how hospitable, and how much public services were available to us. My dad ended up spending his entire career in one job. He had one job, which was computer programmer at the City of Minneapolis Government Center. And so he worked for his entire life for the government. Probably because of that, it never occurred to me that I would ever spend any time working in the government. And so I did the opposite. I went to Wall Street. And once I realized how close New York City was to Washington, D.C., I moved to Silicon Valley and got into venture capital. My next stop is probably Hawaii after this experience, or Guam or something. But in any event, so what am I doing here? I'm working with Development Innovation Ventures. I'm going to refer to it as DIV. And DIV is essentially an in-house startup venture capital fund housed within USAID, with the purpose of looking for and backing some of the most innovative ideas and teams from anywhere trying to solve big global problems. Half of my job involves advising the team on its operations to think about better ways of doing our business. And the other half of my job is to travel out in the field and engage and work with our portfolio companies to help them succeed. And what could be more cool than that? I'm honored to have this opportunity.
So I'm Adam Dole, and from the time I can remember growing up, I wanted to become an astronaut. What kid didn't? And my first job out of undergrad was at NASA, working with astronauts. And I figured, well, what better way to become one than start working with them and understand what their unmet needs are. And so my background is really at the intersection of business, design, and psychology. And I was really understanding with the project that I was working on at NASA what the unmet needs of the astronaut corps would be under very stressful conditions for long duration spaceflight. And what I learned about myself was that A, it's way more glamorous in the movies to be an astronaut, and that I was relieved of the need to become one. But what I really enjoyed was the need-finding process that goes on when you have a multidisciplinary team all looking at problems from different perspectives and designing solutions. Some are technology, but some are human in nature. And you're designing those solutions to really fit the unmet needs that you're identifying. And I thought to myself, this is a really powerful tool. It shouldn't be only held for 60 astronauts within the astronaut corps. There is a much greater need to get this kind of human-centered design toolkit out into the world. And so I ended up looking at all the different problems that I could essentially approach with human-centered design thinking. And as a design strategist, I looked at the increased rates of chronic diseases and childhood obesity, and I basically made it my mission to make a dent in this crisis. And so from a fairly early on part of my career, I knew that I wanted to work in the space of engaging people in their health and healthcare. I didn't have a good sense of traditional healthcare, but I understood design and I understood the process for designing new products and services. And so fast forward, the project that I'm getting a chance to work on as a Presidential Innovation Fellow is Blue Button. And Blue Button is all about empowering people with electronic medical records in a secure way so that they not only have access to those records and can liberate them from the existing silos that they're in, but they have the ability to share them with trusted sources, whether they're family members, other providers, or third-party apps and services and tools that could be developed to actually help people better engage with their healthcare and make better decisions about their health. And so when I started designing products and services in the private sector, I identified that there's a big need to have the data flow to them. And there currently wasn't a big opportunity where that data was coming from until I discovered Project Blue Button through the first round of fellows. And now I'm couldn't be any more thrilled to be able to work with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services on this as a second round fellow to really liberate the data from their existing silos and partner with the healthcare ecosystem of clinical providers, retail pharmacies, labs, payers, to structure the data in a format that allows it for this data liquidity and data interoperability so that people can, for the first time, really become an equal member of their care team.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you very much for the intros. Let's jump into it, but I think before we get really deep onto the projects, I'd like to just talk to a couple of you about the experience and kind of the people and what you expected. So Jackie had a little bit more exposure to government than either Scott or Adam did before they came in. Scott and Adam, can you talk about what you expected and then what you actually found day one when you got here and what that experience was like?
Yeah, I had no idea what to expect, but I had one overriding fear that I would find myself mired in some huge entrenched bureaucracy, unable to get anything done. And that's probably why actually I spent the last 16 years largely working for myself. But when I got here, other than getting hit in the face a couple times by the bureaucracy, I discovered that there was tremendous pools of very brilliant, passionate, dedicated people who were navigating their way through the red tape to accomplish amazing things. And that was really inspiring. And it became very engaging for me. And this is a humbling experience. And so it's been fantastic all around.
For me, I was at the Mayo Clinic prior to my role here. And I ran into a lot of bureaucracy at the Mayo Clinic of about 60,000 employees. So I was pretty nervous coming in thinking, wow, if it's this bureaucratic Mayo Clinic, what am I going to encounter? And I was blown away by not only the sense of urgency to want to challenge the status quo and get stuff done, but just the pure horsepower at which people inside the government, whether they're term positions or career government employees, bring to their daily job. And it was humbling, as I think Scott mentioned here, that being having a small window into that time frame. We're only here for 12 months, but being able to be a part of that and feed off of their energy was something that I didn't expect. And it's definitely inspired me to look at government in a different way. And I'm definitely, I think, more optimistic about what our country has for the future of government citizen interaction after seeing it from the inside. It's been absolutely mind-blowing to me.
That's great to hear. So one thing that Jackie and Adam both mentioned in their intros was empowerment, empowering people, how their projects are doing that. So Jackie, if you want to talk about how exactly the things that you're working on, the tools that you're building to help people respond to disasters, how's that empowering people, end users, the customers of the product?
So I think, so in my view, that there are two different points at which you engage or you can empower people at, and that's before disaster or after disaster. So before disaster, I think a lot of it is educating people on tools that exist, along with their choices in the event of a disaster, and also preparing them in the event of disaster. After a disaster occurs, empowering them, some of the tools I'm working on, empower them to be a part of the recovery and response process in order to contribute to data gathering and just helping people connect and make decisions in order to shelter in place or leave the city, or giving them the best information.
Yeah. So Jackie or Adam, any concrete examples of anecdotes or people who've actually directly felt empowered or been impacted by the work these projects are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for healthcare, I'm probably going to overgeneralize for a second, but there's probably 3 buckets of people. One bucket of people who are healthy, who don't think about their healthcare because they don't have a reason to yet. Then there's another bucket of people that are sick or have a loved one that is sick, and the healthcare system is happening to them. And they almost become not an equal member of their care team, but something where they don't have as much control. And then there's a third group of people that I would call engaged patients, which have gone above and beyond the expectations of the current role that patients have as it's been defined by our healthcare institutions, and really take ownership over their own health because they have access to this data. And so through Blue Button, the first step is getting people access to the data. No matter what format it's in, getting access is the first step, whether it's in a paper format, whether it's in a structured format. Just having that is really empowering for people, and it really opens up, I think, a new role for people to take when either they are going through an issue or a loved one. And then as that data evolves, and as we have more structure to that data, and that data can be machine readable and uploaded into tools, that data now becomes actionable. And that's where I think some of the best examples exist, where data was just a static repository of an event that happened, or a visit, or an encounter with a doctor. But now, that data can start really, I think, proactively identifying unmet needs before the physician oftentimes knows about them, or even preventive things that could be identified early on. And I think those are the kinds of things that we need to see a little bit more of, and actually putting the data to use so that people actually see the value of it.
Yeah.
With respect to what Adam said, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
There is one example I can give, and that is FEMA published a FEMA application where citizens can take photos in the event of a disaster and then upload them to FEMA to give them information on what a situation is like. And that's sort of an example of data that then becomes actionable.
Yeah. And just for Blue Button started inside the VA as a side project because they recognized that 70% of vets were actually going outside the VA system for their care and had no way to get that clinical record to their new provider. So it became almost out of necessity that they needed to arm their vets with their clinical record. And it's just evolved and has kind of spread like wildfire outside just the federal partners to now the private sector.
Yeah, well, I love the example of crowdsourcing information from the people who are closest to the problems on the ground. Now, I'll share one story about Blue Button, if that's all right. So, in the very early days of Blue Button, it started in 2010, so it's still very new, but it's come just leaps and bounds in a few years. Probably in the first 12 months it was around, there was a veteran, a Vietnam vet named Randy, and he has told the story on stage publicly. And Randy had had multiple heart attacks, and he had trouble keeping up with his entire medical history because it was pretty extensive, and the stuff that he had to take certain pills, and the doctor prescribed him, and he had trouble keeping up with it. So he printed out his Blue Button record, just printed out on paper, put it in his pocket, and he had an episode. And they took him to get treated, and the doctor said, "Thank God you had that on you. I saw you were taking this medication. I didn't prescribe you what I would have, which would have interacted very badly with it, and I'm just glad that I knew that, so now you're okay." Randy told this story, and he was in tears, because something as simple as a printed version of Blue Button did that. And again, I mean, that just right there that's impact. So Scott, let's have you talk a little more about DIV, Development Innovation Ventures, about what you've learned, and maybe about some ideas that you think are more generally applicable to the idea of giving grants and loans and how they can be done in new ways.
Yeah, so DIV at USAID is a really great example of leveraging the entire reach and resources of the federal government, and in collaboration with the private sector, nonprofits, foundations, corporations, NGOs around the world. We're leveraging their innovations, we're leveraging their ingenuity, their entrepreneurship to go try to solve problems. And so it's really a great template for public-private partnerships. From what I've seen, we're now about 2 to 3 years old. We have 88 investments around the world in 29 countries, and it can be really effective and powerful. We've come to the conclusion that not all great solutions are going to come out of Washington, D.C. And wherever they might emanate from, we want to support and back and bring those to the public. And so that's what we're all about.
Excellent. So one of the things that we decided early on, or realized early on, I guess is a better way to put it, is that we weren't just bringing in people for 6 to 12 months to these short-term bursts, these tours of duty that solve problems. We were bringing in ideas. We were bringing in ways of doing things and methodologies. So things like lean startup or design thinking or agile, these are increasingly common in the private sector. They're not ubiquitous, and actually lots of large organizations in the private sector face some of the same challenges that large organizations like government face. But we've been trying to bring this in. I'd love to hear what kind of reception you've gotten at your agencies to these, in some cases, different ways of approaching problems.
When I was at the library on a contract, the department I was with was very, I considered them very forward-thinking and very open. And when I went to FEMA, I wasn't expecting the reception I got there and how much they were pushing forward already. So when I came in and was starting to talk about agile method and lean startup, they were like, "Yeah, we're on it. We got it. We're going." So it was not. Everyone was already on board, and I didn't really feel any friction. I thought I was pleasantly surprised, and it's been a really awesome experience.
Yeah. Excellent.
The one thing that I would mention is the agency and our group in particular, they're all seeking to innovate. Everybody in the group is looking for a better way to do business, a better way of solving problems. And so our entire DNA is all about driving the culture of innovation. And we hope to see more of that and to see that kind of philosophy and the culture spread, because like any organization, at the end of the day, it comes down to people and culture. And some of the constraints to being able to execute optimally revolve around some of the kind of regulatory flexibilities and authorities that are needed to really free up and unleash the amount of brain power that's in the agency and throughout government.
Yeah. In terms of the specific approaches that you guys brought, do you feel like those are going to live on after you're gone, based on the teammates and the reception you've gotten so far?
Absolutely, yeah. I think so. Blue Button it lives within Health and Human Services inside a division called the Office for the National Coordinator for Health IT, ONC for short. ONC is a really unique department because it is a bunch of entrepreneurs. I would consider them a bunch of entrepreneurs in residence within HHS that are dedicated to making sure that this vision sees the light of day and continues to gain momentum and see progress. And so a lot of the ideas that I was able to bring in and work with the other fellows who are working on Blue Button on were not only well received, but were kind of received with open arms and resources to make sure that they live on beyond our tenure. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we can do as fellows is make sure that either new ideas that we brought in have a home, or ideas that are buried somewhere inside this organization that have legs see the light of day. Because oftentimes, we take our best assets for granted. Well, ideas have that same issue as well, and sometimes ideas can not necessarily be recognized as great ideas until somebody from the outside with a fresh perspective comes in and shines a flashlight on them and says, this is a great idea, let's rally around this. And really, that wasn't my idea at all, which is sometimes the best.
Yeah, that's something that we found to be very effective is instead of coming in with brand new ideas, actually come in and support some of the great ideas that have been sitting there already and just give them some extra fuel. So let's start generalizing out maybe some lessons that can be learned from your experiences. What qualities do you think there are that indicate that something could be a great project for this kind of innovative approach? Partnering people from different backgrounds. You talked about balanced teams and multidisciplinary teams earlier, Adam. What qualities of project make it good for an approach like this?
I think for a good project for fellows, for presidential innovation fellows, are a sense of ambiguity. I think, being a PIF isn't for everybody. I think for people who really, have a need to have things laid out for them and have specs already defined and identified, are probably not going to be as well suited for the kind of ambiguity that we oftentimes run into as fellows. And so for me, the first thing I would look for are when there's more unknowns than knowns. And unknowns in terms of where the opportunities are, unknowns definitely in terms of where the solutions are. And then a process of need finding to develop some hypotheses around what the solutions might be that can fulfill on those unmet needs that are discovered. And so for me, it's tight feedback loops. Having an organization that understands the importance of learning by doing rather than just talking about stuff. You learn a lot quicker and faster when you test something and you see what works and what doesn't, and you can course correct much quicker than just hypothesizing forever and writing more business plans forever. And so for me, I would say having cross-disciplinary teams that are charged with learning by doing, which oftentimes takes an executive champion to make that okay, because that's not business as usual inside big, large-scale institutions, whether it's the government or a private sector.
So I think the concept of leveraging and bringing in outside expertise to work on very high priority, very focused and concentrated projects is a well-known process that happens in business, nonprofits, it happens in government. Businesses often form tiger teams, internal folks, or they go externally and hire consultants. Everything up to massive projects like the Manhattan Project. And it's about managing and harnessing and providing the resources to that team to execute. And sometimes you have to locate them in the middle of the desert. And sometimes you just have to give them whatever resources they require and whatever leeway and latitude that's necessary to really make big things happen. And that's not always on the table?
I would say along with the sort of across the various ranges of departments inside an agency, I would also say with respect to disaster cross-agency projects, where there are multiple agencies that have an interest within with getting something done as opposed to one agency but flying solo.
I think that's true, is that we've found the Presidential Innovation Fellows Program to be a great connector among agencies, between agencies, so that they've got someone who is going through similar experiences, maybe in a different place, that you can, one, in some ways relate to, when you're going through the same experience, and then you see them on a regular basis. One of the things that we made a decision to do is to make sure that fellows don't just go off into the agency to work on a project and never be seen again. We actually make sure that they're with one another on a regular basis so they can share best practices, share war stories, whatever it might be, so they can get things done that much faster. So let's talk about some of the roadblocks, whether these are specific roadblocks you've found or roadblocks just that you believe exist. What are the barriers to more innovation, to more getting done, to doing things better, faster, cheaper? What are the things that you see in the way? And then if you have solutions for those, please share those as well.
So I think a lot of the problems that we're trying to solve are massive problems that involve not only cross-agency collaboration, but international collaboration in a lot of cases. And then, clearly industry collaboration, private partnerships and such. For that to happen, you have to be open to collaboration. And sometimes it's very scary, I think, to truly collaborate because you're putting your budget at risk. Oftentimes, managers are given a budget and told to manage it effectively with their team. And the second they start establishing a lot of collaboration, they don't have as much control over where that budget is going. And so it can be very scary if you're not incentivized to collaborate and don't see the benefit. And so I think one of the big challenges is not about coming up with new ideas. It's about executing on the ideas that we know need to happen through better collaboration. And until we can start really incentivizing that collaboration to happen, we're going to continue to see, whether it's in the private sector or in big government agencies, not sharing and not realizing the full potential of how to actually execute on some of the ideas that we know need to happen.
Yeah, and I'll go back to people and culture again. Really fostering that culture of innovation. Really finding the right people, investing in them, giving them the latitude to make mistakes, giving them the resources to make things happen. And I think there are a lot of great people in government, and their potential is pretty limitless. If we can just cut through the clutter and stay focused, really engage people to participate, and through their aspirations, I think the sky's the limit.
I would say it's always important to mention that risks can be good as long as they're smart risks.
Yes.
As long as it's a good idea. Yeah.
I'm going to echo what both of them have basically said, and just providing the environment emotionally and in some cases physically for people to get together and collaborate on projects and have idea exchanges.
And just one quote that the PIS talk about, and this is something I picked up a couple of weeks or months ago now, that I have heard echoed among the fellows, that it's almost less important about what you do first, and it's about what you do next. And if you take the assumption that no matter how much we analyze the opportunities, the first thing that we do is going to be off by some magnitude. It might be, small, it might be big. It's really about how you learn from that first thing so that you can do the next thing and really hit the bullseye. And that process of learning, I think, is critical to all this stuff.
Yeah. So all of you and a lot of folks in this room were activated. Somehow you got activated to do something you weren't planning on doing, you didn't expect to do. What advice would you give to government now that you've done this? How can government activate more people? We talked about hundreds of millions of people that don't work for the government. How do you activate them? Is it by bringing them into government? Is it some other way to help them solve national problems, because what we found is that there are a ton of people in this country, and I'm sure all over the world, that want to do things with this, want to contribute in some way.
I think you activate people by succeeding, one small step at a time. And when people start to look around and see things working and seeing problems being solved, their confidence increases in government, their belief is more optimistic, they want to jump on the bandwagon, and ultimately, they want to be involved. They want to be part of the winning team and helping things happen.
I would say along those lines, you want to inspire people, you want to get them excited. I'm going to call out another pip here, Jeff. Jeff, during our sessions sometimes, jumps up and down and
On the chair.
on the chair, and
These are nice chairs.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. But sometimes, you're just sitting there and you're in the room and you're being engaged, and Jeff will say something and he'll just get so excited about it, and you just want to go do whatever he's doing. And I think that's part of it, just getting people excited about it and showing them your passion about it, and then pulling them into that. And then, like I said earlier, like I think we all said, collaboration, provide them a safe space to experiment, to not shoot down ideas. Every idea is a good idea.
I think the best thing government can do is listen and understand that there's an entire generation of people that are lining up to have an impact. And by listening, I think it's to what Jackie and Scott have already mentioned, is create a platform for them to be able to participate. And I think the first step is listening to understand where they can fit into that.
Awesome. Let's do one more question here, and that is simply, what are you going to take away from this experience personally, and what would you want to share with the audience here, or any audience, about this program, about civic innovation, about the potential for impact?
I'll go. So I think this experience for me truly has changed my life. And it has not only changed the perspective that I have on the role that government can play as a platform for innovation, but it's changed, I think, the course of my career, where I now see opportunities to work with government, whether it's at the federal level, the state level, the city level, to leverage technology to create those platforms and to, I think, create a more powerful private sector. And I never knew that was something that I would get so passionate about, but I've been bitten by the bug. And I would just want people to experience even just 10% of what I've had the good opportunity to experience over the last 6 months, and we'll have 6 more months, but I don't want it to end.
Yeah, so I've spent my entire career in the private sector, and but I've always, on the side, had this passion to continue being involved and engage on issues of poverty, education, and other things. And my lovely wife, who's sitting in the back, please raise your hand. She never lets me forget that every vacation that we've ever taken involves stopping at a refugee camp or an orphanage. And I promised her that our next trip will be to Paris on the way to Goma. And so this has been an incredible opportunity for me to take my lifetime of professional skills and combine them with my personal passions to apply them to solving big challenges. And this program gave me that opportunity. I look around and we're in this beautiful embassy and surrounded by amazing people. What could be better? This has been an experience of a lifetime.
So along those lines, I'll say that this has been an amazing experience with amazing opportunities. I'll also say that, as I started out, this has been sort of something in my family that we're very passionate about, sort of empowering citizens, empowering people. And beyond journalism and then working for the government, I don't know that I could, I've never considered private industry, I don't think, other than journalism. So I mean, other than, it's still a business, but I don't know that I could I don't know if I could go that route, because I'm so passionate about just sort of giving back to them.
Great. Well, I will just speak for myself to say that I think this is just an incredibly exciting moment. Technology is making so much possible that wasn't possible before, and it's making it possible to have participatory government, something that Ambassador Cuisia mentioned in his opening remarks. It's easier than it's ever been before, no matter where you're located, no matter what sector of society you're in, to actually contribute to solutions that are going to impact the nation and the world. And that's just incredibly exciting. So I want to thank the ambassador again for having us. I want to thank our panelists, Adam, Jackie, Scott, and I want everyone, hopefully, to stick around for a few minutes, if they don't have to run and catch football quite yet, and talk to each other, because there are a lot of Presidential Innovation Fellows here that are working on amazing things. They've all got their own stories, much like these three, and I hope everyone gets a chance to really connect.